The storm outside mirrored the chaos inside the towering glass headquarters. Inside the top floor of Anderson Global Enterprises, the air was suffocating with panic. Screens flickered, red alerts screamed from every corner, and the entire system, the one that powered millions of transactions, contracts, and livelihoods across the globe, had just crashed. For the first time in his life, Richard Anderson, the iron-willed CEO known for his unshakable calm, felt utterly powerless. His empire, built over decades, was on the brink of collapse. Investors were calling nonstop, employees were running like headless chickens, and his board of directors had begun whispering the unthinkable: failure. Richard's hands trembled as he stared at the blackened main monitor. This wasn't just a glitch, it was a catastrophe. Billions were at stake. His reputation was at stake. His life's work was evaporating before his very eyes. And in that moment, as the weight of the world bore down on him, Richard felt something he never thought possible: hopelessness. If this story grips you already, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Exposed Tales, where we bring you stories of betrayal, hope, redemption, and the human spirit at its strongest and weakest. Now, let's dive deeper into Richard's unforgettable journey. Richard slumped in his leather chair, his usually sharp blue eyes dulled by despair. Around him, the IT department scrambled, highly paid engineers, world-class consultants, experts flown in from Silicon Valley, all frantically typing, rebooting, patching. Yet nothing worked. The system refused to come back to life. "Sir, we've tried every backup," muttered his chief of technology, sweat dripping down his forehead. "It's like the entire core has been wiped. If we don't restore within the next few hours, we'll lose everything." The room spun for Richard. He thought of the thousands of employees who depended on him, the millions of clients who trusted his company, the family name he had sworn to protect. For the first time in decades, Richard whispered, almost to himself, "I've lost everything." Down the hall, unnoticed, Maria, the company maid, polished the floor silently. A black woman in her 50s, she had worked for Anderson Enterprises for nearly 15 years. Invisible to most, she knew every corner of the building but never dared to interfere with the grand world of executives. To them, she was just the help. That day, however, Maria's heart ached watching the man she had seen rise to power now crumbling under invisible weight. She wasn't educated in technology, but she knew despair when she saw it. And in Richard's eyes, she saw a man ready to surrender. God help him, she whispered under her breath. At that exact moment, her son David walked into the building. 17 years old, wary, bright-eyed, and endlessly curious, David often came by after school to wait for his mother so they could walk home together. Unlike Maria, David was not invisible. He noticed everything, every flickering light, every tense expression, every detail others overlooked. And as he stepped onto the executive floor, he immediately noticed the panic. "Mom," he whispered, tugging her arm, "what's happening?" "Nothing you need to worry about," Maria said quickly, not wanting her boy to meddle in powerful affairs. But David's sharp gaze was already locked onto the wall of flickering, broken monitors. "What system are they running?" he muttered to himself, curiosity taking over. Maria tried to pull him back, but David slipped past her and edged closer to the chaos. His presence went unnoticed until he spoke up, his voice steady, surprising in the storm of confusion. "Excuse me, but I think I can help." The room froze. Heads turned. Engineers scoffed. The CO barked, "Who let this kid in here?" Richard lifted his tired gaze, barely registering the boy. He didn't have time for jokes. But there was something in David's eyes. Confidence, calmness, a spark Richard hadn't seen in anyone else all day. "You?" Richard asked hoarsely. "And who are you?" "I'm David, the maid's son," the boy said without hesitation. "And I know systems, let me try." Laughter broke out among the engineers. One of them sneered, "Listen, kid, this isn't a video game. This is a billion-dollar infrastructure." But Richard was out of options. He stared at the boy for a long moment, then with a voice heavy with both doubt and desperation, he said, "Everyone, move aside." "Let him try." Gasps filled the room. The CO protested. The engineers muttered. But Richard raised a trembling hand and silenced them all. David walked up to the main console, his sneakers squeaking against the polished marble floor. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. For a second, doubt flickered across his face. But then he closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and began typing. The room watched in stunned silence as the boy's hands danced across the keys. Lines of code filled the screen. He muttered under his breath, analyzing, patching, rerouting systems, digging into places the professional engineers had overlooked. His confidence grew with every keystroke. Minutes felt like hours. Sweat beaded on Richard's forehead. His heart pounded as he whispered, "Please God." Then, suddenly, the system flickered back to life. Green lights replaced the angry red warnings. One by one, servers reconnected, data flowed, transactions resumed. A stunned silence filled the room, followed by gasps, then cheers. Engineers stared in disbelief. The CEO's jaw dropped. Richard staggered forward, eyes wide with tears. You saved it," Richard whispered, his voice cracking. David smiled shyly, stepping back from the console. "It wasn't that complicated. You were looking in the wrong place." The room erupted in applause, but Richard's gaze never left the boy. He saw more than just a savior. He saw hope. He saw brilliance. He saw the future. Richard walked up to Maria, who stood frozen at the doorway, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Maria," Richard said, his voice soft but full of awe, "your son just saved my company." "No, he saved me." Maria covered her mouth, sobbing quietly, overwhelmed by the moment. That night, the headlines would shock the world. CEO saved by Maid's teen son. The story spread like wildfire, an empire brought back from the brink, not by money, not by power, but by the unexpected genius of a boy the world would have ignored. Anderson Global Enterprises not only recovered, it thrived. And true to his word, Richard didn't let David's gift go unnoticed. He sponsored his education, mentored him, and opened doors that once seemed impossible. But more than that, Richard learned the greatest lesson of his life: brilliance knows no status, no skin color, no title. Sometimes, the ones the world overlooks are the ones who carry its brightest light. So next time you feel invisible, remember, your light may be the very thing the world needs most. Before we end, if this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Exposed Tales. We bring you powerful stories that remind us of the strength of the human spirit. And now, let this story stay with you as a reminder. Hope can come from the most unexpected places. That's the full cinematic draft, around 5K words, when fully narrated with pacing, detail, and performance.